The hour of 6:30 p.m. having arrived, I'll call to order this regular meeting of the Planning Board. This meeting is being broadcast live on channel 1302. Anyone watching to view a copy of the agenda and supporting materials will find it on the city website. Will staff please conduct the roll call?
Pamela Russell Slack,
Present.
David Orgaz,
Present.
Mayor George Hansel, Councillor Mike Remy, Harold Farrington,
Present.
Roberta Mastrogiovanni, Gail Summers, Emily Levine Bernier, Armando Rangel, Tammy Adams. And Madam Chair, I did hear from Mayor Hansel and Councillor Remy that they would not be able to make it tonight.
Thank you, Mary. I'm going to call Armando Rangel to come to the board to fill tonight because we have a vacant spot open, and he is an alternate. Thank you, Armando. So the first item on the agenda is the election of the Planning Board Chair, Vice Chair, and the Steering Committee member. Do I have a motion for the Planning Board Chair?
Yes, I would like to make a motion to nominate Pamela Russell Slack for chair.
Recording in progress.
Do I have a motion for the Vice Chair?
I'd like to make a motion to nominate David Orgaz for vice chair.
Is there a second? And I would like to have another nomination for the third member of the steering committee.
I'd like to nominate Harold Farrington for the steering committee.
Is there a second? Thank you. So if we could vote, I think we can vote on all three at the same time? Or do they need to be individual, or do those? Individually? So a motion for the chair for Pam Russell Slack. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Can I vote for myself? A motion for the vice chair, David Orgaz. All in favor? A motion for Harold Farrington for the third member of the steering committee. All in favor? Thank you.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Just for the minute taker, we just make note that those were all unanimous votes.
All the votes were unanimous. Thank you. Do I have a motion to accept the minutes of the previous meeting?
Yes, I have a motion to approve the minutes for the meeting of December 20th, 2021.
Is there a second?
Second.
Are there any questions, comments, any changes?
This is Mary Brenner, Senior Planner. Just a Scribner error. The minutes should note that Tammy Adams was physically present for the meeting in December.
Thank you for that correction. Are there any other changes, comments? All in favor? Thank you. The vote was unanimous. Next on the agenda is SPR. I don't think that's right. Hold on a second. What is the first one? SPR 04-21, the site plan for 100 Nights Homeless Shelter on 122 and 124 Water Street. Applicant 100 Nights, on behalf of owner Green Diamond Group LLC, proposes to construct a 15,000 square foot building for use as a homeless shelter and other associated site improvements on the properties located at 122 Water Street. Tax map number 585-027-000 and 124 Water Street, tax map number 585-028-000. The 122 Water Street site is 0.33 acre in size. The 122 Water Street site is 0.33 acres in size. The 124 Water Street site is 0.29 acres in size and is located in the downtown historic district. Both properties are located in the business growth and reuse district, sustainable energy efficient development overlay, and downtown railroad property redevelopment district. I would like to invite the applicant to speak to this request. Mr. Tippett, thank you.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Jim Fippard, Brickstone Land Use Consultants. I'm here tonight on behalf of 100 Nights, Inc. They recently closed on the properties at 122 and 124 Water Street. And the request before you tonight is just to allow an extension of our conditional site plan approval. The site plan was approved in August of 2021 and is due to expire on February 20th. So because of the complications involved with the several grants that they're receiving, and they're happy to say they're at 82% of their fundraising goal to date, we are requesting a 6-month extension. This is the first request for extension for the site plan approval, and we should be in good shape in another probably 6 weeks. I think we can have all the conditions satisfied. A lot of work has already been done and completed. The Phase 2 environmental site assessment has been completed, and as you're very well aware, the properties in and around the railroad land did contain contaminants, and this property did as well. So all of that has been identified, and activity and use restrictions are being put in place so it can be developed safely and converted to this use. And I'll be happy to answer any questions. We're requesting this first extension, 6-month extension to our conditional site plan approval.
Does the board have any questions for the applicant or the staff? Okay. Is there a motion to approve the request?
Yes, I move to approve the request for a 6-month extension to the deadline to meet the conditions of approval for 100 Nights.
Is there a second? Is there any further discussion or any comments? All in favor? The vote is unanimous. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
You're welcome. The first public hearing, the second item on the agenda is SPR 423, modification number 4, site plan, Corning Specialty Materials at 69 and 0 Island Street, applicant Leighton A. White on behalf of the owner, Island Mill Realty Corp. Proposes to install electrical equipment and modify the parking on the properties located at 69 Island Street, tax maps 583-010-000-000-000. Keep. And 0 Island Street, tax map 582-048-000-000-000. These combined parcels are 9.2 acres in size and are located in the Commerce District. Does the staff have recommendation for the completeness of the application?
Yes, this is Mary Brenner. The applicant has requested exemptions from providing a grading plan, lighting plan, landscaping plan, architectural elevations, and technical reports. Staff have reviewed the exemption requests and recommend that the board grant the requested exemptions and accept the application as complete.
Thank you. Motion to accept the application as complete.
Make a motion to accept the application as complete.
Is there a second? All in favor? Motion is unanimous. Thank you. And I'm going to invite you to present.
Thank you, Madam Chair. John Noonan from Fieldstone Land Consultants, here on behalf of the applicant, Leighton A. White Incorporated. So we're here tonight to seek approval for a site plan for electrical improvements at the Corning site. Um, So ultimately, they're trying to put in a UPS system, generator set up for completing, so they have uninterrupted power supply, so that they're able to run in the Corning site is run their manufacturing process without any interruptions, because if there's an interruption, it can ruin the product that they're running, and it's a loss of material, time, and everything else. So the plan is to put in a generator, run underground electric over to this pad. This is a 29 by 42 foot long pad that has a switchgear, transformer, the generator on the pad. The pad is at grade, so it's not raised up above grade, because it's close to the floodplain. This area where the improvements is outside of the 100-year floodplain, but the site is very close because the Osceola River is on this western side of the property. With this improvement, there were changes to 11 parking spaces. So that's how we kind of ended up at the planning board stage instead of administrative review, was the change to the parking plan here. So 11 spaces were changed from where they are. We're able to create 3 new parking spaces. The other spaces were able to be created just by striping only, so no new pavement or impervious surfaces. So it's ultimately just restriping the parking lot. So we have one down on the other lot, 2 here, 2 here. These are the 3 new parking spaces that are right here on this corner. And 2 at the top and 1 at this corner. So with these spaces removed to allow for trucks to come around and fit the generator pad there, those 11 spaces have been provided elsewhere on the site within distance of this parking area. So we're here tonight to just have approval for this plan. We provided an overall site plan, existing conditions plan, which shows all the parking spaces for the entire site. There's also questions on water lines and where everything else is, so all of the utilities have been added to this plan to show the existing condition on the site. Next plan provided was a 20-scale site plan showing more detail of the generator pad, the new parking spaces, which have wheel stops. So currently, none of these parking spaces have curbing on them, so just the new parking spaces will have wheel stops in front of them. In order to offset this impervious area, so there's a small impervious increase right here, we're removing pavement in some of these areas, so it ends up being, the only difference is 3 square feet of difference in impervious, actually less in the proposed scenario than the pre-condition. So they would run from a new utility pole over here, underground service. This would be in concrete duct bank, which is preferred by the city engineer. Run over transformer, switchgear, UPS system, and the generator switch over power. There was questions on the parking lease on this area up here, so there was no changes on any of this parking. But the pavement does go into the rail trail section that's owned by the city. There is a lease that was on the deed and reference from 1990 and 91. However, that was questionable if it was paid for, if it was current or not on that lease after it was looked up. But there was reference to it in 1991. So Mary was able to find that and provide it. I'll go down through the design standard, 19 design standards. So the first one, drainage. The electrical improvements will only create 1,236 square feet of impervious surface. The existing condition, we're removing 1,239, so we're a slight reduction in impervious surfaces. So there's going to be no changes in drainage at all on the plan. We're using existing grades, so no changes at all. Sedimentation, erosion control. There's a catch basin that's close to where they're going to be excavating to remove pavement and also construct a new concrete pad, so that'll end up with a silt sock in it. And along this lower edge of the excavation, there'll be silt fence placed. Hillside protection, so this is not in the hillside protection overlay district. Snow storage and removal. So snow will be handled how it has been in the past. That came up as a question, is how they handle it. So typically it's plowed to the edges of the pavement, large storms, it's hauled off-site. Most of the time, it's pushed down to these outer edges on the western side because that's more towards where there's larger landscape areas and not these front areas. They do have a new snowplow contract for this year, so it might be handled slightly different than the last person, but overall doing the same thing, pushing to the sides. The last 2 years, they've not had to haul any snow off-site because obviously we're getting less and less snow, it seems. Flooding, so the property is, a portion of it is in the 100-year floodplain because of the Swalat River being along this western side. It does not come into anywhere close to where the improvements are for the electrical. It's more on this end corner here. Landscaping, there's no proposed landscaping based on just the utility requirements. Noise, so the proposed improvements are located on the backside away from neighboring properties, and it won't generate excessive noise. Screening, there's no screening proposed, as this is in the backside of so Island Street is here. So basically the existing building is screening it from the abutting properties. There's a large amount of trees along the Swalat River and this side that would basically provide screening from the backside here of any of the properties this way. Air quality, so there's no the proposed improvements are located away from neighboring properties, residential areas, and there'll be minimal impacts in the air quality. Lighting, there is no proposed lighting included. Sewer and water, so the site currently has municipal sewer and water services. They are shown on the, coming off of Island Street, based on the Public Works records of tie cars, but we have no changes to water and sewer, so they remain. Traffic, the proposed improvements are not going to impact any traffic. There's still the driving lane around and the same number of parking spaces on site as the existing. Driveways, so the entrance, all of this is kept the same, and it's a minimum of 22 feet to meet the new land development code standards for a 22-foot minimum drive aisle. Hazardous and toxic materials, there's no proposed hazardous or toxic materials associated with the project. Filling and excavation, there will be no filling or excavation of material on site. The proposed concrete pads will be poured at existing grade. So asphalt being removed, concrete pad being installed over in this corner. Wetlands, there's no proposed impacts to wetlands. Surface waters, the Swalat River is abutting the property. There is no impact to the Swalat River or its banks. Stump dumps, there is no removal of trees or stumps. And architectural and visual appearance. So it's a generator. We did not provide architecturals for it, but concrete pad with a generator on it. Those are the 19 development standards.
Good job.
Are there any? I'm glad I didn't have to read the tax map.
I bet. Do board members have any questions for the applicant? Okay. So I'll invite staff, Mary, for standards and project information.
Yep, so Mary Brenner, Senior Planner. We did receive a couple of departmental comments on this application. The first one was just to make sure the applicant is aware that they will need to get a building permit, which they are aware of that requirement. And the second one was in regards to the parking spaces located, partially located on the city-owned land, just to make sure that they have a valid lease in place for those parking spaces, to make sure, they're meeting their requirements for parking on site under zoning. So those were the two comments that we had from staff. I believe the applicant has done a pretty good job of running through the development standards. A couple of things just to highlight. One is that with regards to sediment and erosion control, the applicant has proposed to use silt fencing along the edge of all the work areas and also install a silt sack around the existing catch basin that's within the project area. And that is shown on the proposed plan. With respect to screening, as the applicant noted, they're not proposing to install screening around the generator due to its location, which is in a spot that's not visible from the public right-of-way or adjacent properties. And I think the only other thing that I will mention is that staff are recommending a condition of approval, stating that the property owner provide documentation of a current and valid lease for the parking lot encroachment onto city land.
I'm sorry, Mary, on to what?
Onto city-owned lands,
Okay,
the parking lot encroachment.
okay.
And I did include language for a recommended motion in the staff report, but I'm happy to answer any questions.
Okay, thank you. Do board members have any questions for staff? I'll at this time invite the public to ask any questions or provide any comments. Don't run.
And Madam Chair, there
I'm
are
gonna-
some people who are on Zoom. So for the folks who are on Zoom, if you'd like to comment, if you just raise your hand, I can unmute you. Okay. I don't see anybody raising their hand.
No comment? Okay, thank you. So there are no more public comments, so I'll close the public comment portion for the deliberation. And right now, the board has the opportunity to deliberate. Does anyone have any questions at all? Okay, seeing none, is there a motion for the application?
Yes, Madam Chair, there's a motion to approve SPR-423, modification number 4 for the installation of electrical equipment and parking lot modifications as presented on the plan identified as overall site plan, tax map lots 583-010-000 and 582-048-000, 69 Island Street, Keene, New Hampshire, prepared by Fieldstone Land Consultants at a scale of 1 inch equals 40 feet on December 14th, 2021, and last revised on January 7th, 2022, with the following conditions prior to signature by Planning Board Chair. 1, submittal of documentation of a valid lease for the parking lot encroachment on city land. 2, owner's signature appears on the plan.
Thank you. Is there a second? Thank you. Any discussion or edits? All in favor? Thank you. The motion is unanimous. Thank you for the great presentation. Appreciate it. The next item on the agenda is S09-21, boundary line adjustment for 90-92 and 0 off Victoria Street. Applicant Fieldstone Land Consultants, LLC, on behalf of owners Jamie and Beverly Ells, proposes a boundary line adjustment between the properties located at 90-92 Victoria Street, tax map number 589-022-000-000, and 0 off Victoria Street, tax map number 589-023-000-000-000. This adjustment would result in a transfer of 0.85 acres from the 1.5 acre parcel at 90-92 Victoria Street to the 0.57 acre parcel at 0 Victoria Street. Both properties are located in the Business Growth and Reuse District. Does staff have a recommendation for completeness of the application?
This is Mary Brenner. The applicant has requested exemptions from providing a separate grading plan, landscaping plan, lighting plan, and technical reports. After reviewing these exemption requests, staff have determined that exempting the applicant from submitting this information would have no bearing on the merits of the application and recommend that the board accept the application as complete.
Thank you. Motion to accept the application as complete.
I make a motion to accept the application as complete.
Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor? Motion passes unanimous. The board, I invite the applicant to present on the proposal.
Thank you, Madam Chair. John Noonan, Fieldstone Land Consultants again. Thank you again for reading the tax map numbers. So we're here for a boundary line adjustment. I'm here on behalf of James and Beverly Ells. In September, we went before the zoning board to get a variance based on frontage for these lots. So the current lot that has frontage on Victoria Street is, let me go to this one. So this is the existing. Blue is the front lot that has L's Electric and a residential home on it. There is a back lot with no frontage. Access to the home now is currently a right-of-way easement across the front from the end of Victoria Street, which is here. So as we went to the zoning board, was the existing frontage was less than what is required, which is 50 feet. So the plan was, in order to provide, take this lot and make it a portion of the residential lot, splitting the commercial and the residential lots into separate uses, that we would split the frontage on Victoria Street equally between the two lots. So the proposal is to have the boundary line adjustment where in blue here is shown the commercial lot with half of the frontage, which is a little over 18 feet, and the remaining frontage, which is also a little over 18 feet, just under 19 feet. So split right here at the end of Victoria Street. So the existing frontage was less than the 50 feet to begin with. We split what was there between the two lots. The existing right-of-way across the front of the residential lot would remain in place, so that the house has access via the right-of-way access easement that's across the front of the lot. So this pink lot here becomes the residential lot. The blue lot is the commercial. So after boundary line adjustment, we have the residential lot is 1.421 acres. And the proposed commercial lot is 0.733 acres in size. Now, I can run down the 19 development standards. Almost all of them, we asked for the exemptions on because there were no changes to any structures on site. It was only the boundary lines. So if the board would like, I can run through them, or.
Does the board feel that they need to hear the 19 standards at this point? Anyone from the board? Yes, all set.
Okay.
Do any members of the board have a question of the applicant?
Just to confirm, so there's no real change with anything?
There's no changes at all to any of the structures, yes.
Thank you.
This-
I invite staff for comment.
Thank you. This is Mary Brenner. The request tonight is to transfer 0.85 acres from the property at 90 to 92 Victoria Street to the property at 0 off Victoria Street. The purpose of this boundary line adjustment would be to provide access and road frontage for the 0 off Victoria Street parcel, and also to create separate lots for the residential and commercial buildings that are currently both located on the 90 to 92 Victoria Street parcel. Both of these properties are in the Business Growth and Reuse District, which has a minimum lot size of 8,000 square feet. So both before and after the proposed adjustment, the two parcels would meet that minimum lot size requirement. This proposal would also make the 0 off Victoria Street more conforming with respect to the minimum road frontage requirements. This property has received 2 variances, one to permit a 19-foot road frontage where 50 feet of frontage is required, and another to permit a single-family residence in the BGR district. There were no departmental comments on this application. And the only 2 standards that I addressed in the staff report were traffic and access management. Just to note that the residential property is accessed via a driveway that crosses what would be a separate lot after the proposed adjustment. So staff is recommending that submittal of documentation of an access easement be included as a condition of approval. Just to make sure that in the future, whoever owns that residential lot will be able to access it from the road. And then the only other thing to note is that back lot, the 0 off Victoria Street, does have wetlands on it. Those have been delineated by a wetland scientist. However, there's no development being proposed at this time, and there's no impacts to the wetlands that would be created as a result of this proposal. I'm happy to answer any questions.
Do any of the board members have any questions for staff? Okay, seeing no questions from the staff, I invite the public to ask any questions or provide comments. Is there anybody on Zoom, Mary?
Not at this moment. If anybody on Zoom would like to comment on this application, you can use the blue raise your hand icon to raise your hand. Not seeing anybody, Madam Chair.
Thank you. Seeing that there are no public comments, I will close the public comment portion for deliberation. Do any members of the board have any questions?
I do not.
Is there a motion on the application?
Yes, Madam Chair, there's a motion to approve S-09-21 as shown on the plan entitled Lot Line Adjustment prepared for James L. Ellis and Beverly A. Ellis, 90-92 Victoria Street, City of Keene, County of Cheshire, State of New Hampshire, prepared by Fieldstone Land Consultants, PLLC, at a scale of 1 inch equals 30 feet on December 4th, 2021, with the following condition prior to signature by the Planning Board Chair. 1, submittal of documentation for an access easement for the zero off Victoria Street property, granting the right to pass and repass on the 90-92 Victoria Street property. And 2, owner's signature appears on the plan.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion or any edits? All in favor of the motion? Motion passes unanimously. Thank you.
Thank you.
The next item on the agenda is CLSS Cup -01-21 Congregate Living and Social Service Conditional Use Permit. The Monadnock Area Peer Support Agency, 32 to 34 Washington Street, rear. Applicant and owner Monadnock Area Peer Support Agency proposes to operate a large group home as a second principal use on the property located at 32 to 34 Washington Street, rear. Tax map number 568-058-000-000-000. The site is 0.2 acres in size and is located in the downtown core district. Does staff have recommendation for completeness of the application?
Mary Brenner, Senior Planner. The applicant has requested exemptions from providing grading, landscaping, and lighting plans, building elevations, and technical reports. Staff have reviewed the requested exemptions and recommend that the board accept the application as complete.
Thank you. Motion to accept the application is complete.
Make a motion to accept the application as complete.
Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor? Motion passes unanimously. Thank you. At this time, I invite the applicant to come forward to state their name and introduce the project.
Hi, good evening. I'm Lisa Stedman from Monadnock Peer Support Agency, the Director of Agency Relations. And this evening, we bring to you a request for a conditional use permit. What we're doing is on the interior of our building within the existing footprint, we're going to add 6 bedrooms. That means moving around some walls inside of the building. And that causes us to exceed the square footage for our principal use. We'll have to apply for a second principal use under a congregate living, group home large. In total, there are going to be 10 rooms inside. So by group home large, we mean 10 residents. I see in the application that there's a question about lighting, and I can address that now if you'd like. Okay, so I had to walk down that alleyway to get here. I left the building, I walked down the alleyway, it was dark, pitch black. We're concerned about the lighting as well. We want to change the lighting, but the barrier we have is that we own only the westerly wall. That's on the far end of the alleyway. So we have to ask permission from Keene Housing to add to the lighting onto their building, or we have to, if that falls through, we're going to have to ask the Tusoulis family. They house Kristen's Bakery. And I mean, presumably, they're going to allow us to put lighting. If they don't, then we can put lighting on the pathway, perhaps just foot lighting, solar powered. Are there any questions about that? And we have already requested our neighbors' permission to put lighting onto the walkway.
Do board members have any questions of the applicant? I do just have a comment. I think I need to, for the board to know that I am on the board of Keene Housing Authority. So, at some point I may have to recuse myself, but I don't think that applies at this moment because they haven't gone to Keene Housing just yet to ask for lighting. So, but I am going to add my own comment. I actually did go over by the alley myself. It is very dark there, so
Yeah.
I can understand your concern.
We do intend to address that as a separate project and more expediently than the Washington Wellness Project. So we don't want you to feel like we just left it out of our application. It is something that we are concerned about.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
Do any other board members have any other questions? Ms. Farrington?
Did I hear incorrectly? You said adding 6 bedrooms, or?
Yes, we already have 5, and we're adding, I'm sorry, we have 5 now. We're taking, yes, we're going to have 6 total. So I'm sorry, it's going to be 10 and then 1 staff room. So 10 residents, 1 staff room. I
Okay.
got there. Took me a minute, but I got there.
Okay. Thank you.
Any other questions? Okay, thank you. I'm open for the staff comments. Mary, thank you.
Sure, it's Mary Brenner, Senior Planner. Just to give you a little bit of background, and I'll just ask the applicant to jump in if I misrepresent anything, but Monadnock Peers Support Agency, or MPS, is a member-based organization that provides a variety of mental health services through a variety of programs, including peer support groups, individual and group therapy, and individual and group case management and trainings. And they also currently operate a short-term residency program that's considered to be accessory to their principal use. I believe they're currently classified as a clinic under the zoning code. They've operated at their current location at 32 to 34 Washington Street rear for less than a year. This property is in the downtown core district. It's about 200 feet north of Central Square, so right in the heart of the downtown, and its access, the vehicle access to the site is actually from Vernon Street, but there is a pedestrian access from Washington Street, and that's where they get the Washington Street address from. So as I mentioned, the existing principal use on the lot is a clinic with the addition of the 5 rooms for residents, bringing it to a total of 10 rooms. That brings that accessory use up to the scale where it would be considered a second principal use on the lot. And under Article 8, Section 8.3.4, this proposed use is classified as a large group home, and per Article 15, this project requires a congregate living and social services conditional use permit from the planning board. The only comments from other departments that we received on this application was just a note from code enforcement that a building permit will be required, and the applicant is well aware of that. And the fire department also noted that the fire alarms will need to be upgraded in order to add additional beds, and the applicant is also aware of that comment. So next, I'm just going to go through the conditional use criteria. And this is I just want to note really quickly that this is the first application of its kind. The Congregate Living and Social Services Conditional Use Permit is a new conditional use permit that was established under the Land Development Code that just went to effect in September. So this is our first one that came through. So the first criteria under Article 19 states that the nature of the proposed application is consistent with the spirit and intent of the zoning regulations. This land development code and the city's comprehensive master plan and complies with all the applicable standards in this LDC for the particular use in section 8.3.4. So this is a kind of a broad general criteria that's basically stating that the proposed use has to be consistent with the city's zoning and land use regulations and master plan. This property is located in the downtown core district. It's one of the new 6 form-based zoning districts in the downtown. And the intent of this district is really to accommodate the highest intensity of development in the city and to promote a mix of uses. So the applicant is proposing to create a large group home as a second principal use on the lot, which is allowed because this district allows for mixed uses. So it can have more than one principal use. This site, I will note really quickly, it's also within the downtown historic district. However, at this time, no changes are being proposed to the exterior of the building or the site. So they didn't need to go to the Historic District Commission at this time. Under section 8.3.4 of the Land Development Code, it includes use standards for a large group home. The first one is that only one large group home shall be permitted per lot. This would be the only large group home on the lot. The second one is that no large group home shall be constructed or operate without first having obtained a congregate living and social services conditional use permit from the planning board, which is why the applicant is here tonight. The third one states that annually a large group home shall obtain a congregate living and social services license from the city council as set forth in Chapter 46 of the City Code of Ordinances. So the applicant is aware of that requirement that they'll need to get a license. And we actually have a congregate living and social services licensing board that would be issued from. And then the fourth one is if it's located within a residential zoning district, it has to maintain the appearance of a residential structure. The downtown core district is not considered to be a residential district, so that one would not apply in this case. The second criteria states that the proposed use will be established, maintained, and operated so as not to endanger the public health, safety, or welfare. So the applicant did address this in their project narrative. They noted that all activities associated with the proposed use will be occurring inside the building. There will be a staff person on site at all times, including overnight, so 24/7 there will be someone there. In addition, a full-time residential case manager will be visiting the center daily. Residents, members, and staff can access the site again from either the Washington Street entrance, which is a pedestrian entrance, and also, as I understand it, that's their accessible entrance.
Excuse me, Mayor.
Yep.
Did you say that the entrance would be from Washington Street?
Well, that's one of their 2 entrances that they have.
Okay, but which one is the main entrance?
My understanding is the one from Vernon Street would be the main entrance. However, the entrance from Washington Street is the accessible entrance. So anyone that has a mobility
May I?
issue would, yeah.
The entrance from Vernon Street is used most often, and I went back through our motion sensor cameras today, and I learned that the entrance on Washington Street is only used 2 or 3 times per hour, so maybe 20, 25 times per day. Our most used entrance is on Vernon Street.
Okay, thank you for clarifying that.
Yep, and as the applicant just noted, both entrances have motion-activated security cameras and will be locked from 7 p.m. to 9 a.m. each day. There are exterior lights that exist today. There's a floodlight and a porch light on both the Vernon Street side of the building and on the Washington Street side of the building. In response to staff comments, the applicant did note that they do not believe the lighting is sufficient, and they're hoping to address that issue at a later date. And I believe the applicant already addressed that issue. And then finally, the applicant notes that this site is within easy distance, about 100 feet of the fire station, and therefore they should be pretty easy to get to in terms of emergency response.
I hope so.
The next criteria states the proposed use will be established, maintained, and operated so as to be harmonious with the surrounding area and will not impede the development, use, and enjoyment of adjacent property. In addition, any parking lots, outdoor activity area, or waiting areas associated with the use shall be adequately screened from adjacent properties and from public rights-of-way. So again, I'll note that this property is located in the downtown core district, which is a pretty densely populated area of the downtown. I did take a look at some of the adjacent uses, which include a mix of commercial, multifamily, office, institutional, and social service uses. And once again, the group home will be operated entirely within the existing building. And there will be no outdoor activity areas or waiting areas associated with the proposed use. The applicant is not proposing any changes to the site or the existing parking lot. There are 11 parking spaces available on site. One of those spaces is currently leased to Keene Housing, and the remaining 10 will be utilized by staff, members of MPS, residents, and visitors. The applicant did state that on an average day, staff uses no more than 6 spaces, leaving 4 spaces for residents, members, and visitors. And in addition, there's metered and non-metered on-street parking, as well as metered off-street parking located within a pretty easy walking distance. I will note the downtown core district does not have a minimum parking requirement. The next criteria states that the proposed use will be of a character that does not produce noise, odors, glare, and/or vibration that adversely affects the surrounding area. So due to the fact that the use will be conducted entirely indoors, staff do not anticipate any impacts of that nature.
Mary, the only question I have is, and I'm sorry, I maybe just have to go back to the presenter, but will there be smoking allowed on the property? And if so, where would it be located? In back of the building or in the alley?
Smoking is permitted only in the rear side of the building, near our bicycle rack and our dumpster. So it's in the parking lot area, and it's not permitted in the alleyway at all. We have our motion sensitive cameras. We're willing to put up another one to see if we can identify any smokers that are in the alleyway, and it would be helpful for us when we get the additional lighting. We'll be able to see better who that is, so we can identify the folks and remediate the problem.
Thank you very much. There's a restaurant right here. I appreciate that. Thank you, Mary.
Mhm.
And thank you.
Yep. So continuing on, the next criteria E, the proposed use will not place an excessive burden on public infrastructure, facilities, services, or utilities. So with this proposed use, there's no changes being made to the existing water and sewer access, and city engineering staff didn't express any concerns about impacts to utilities or traffic. The applicant did submit a traffic generation estimate to show that the increase in traffic that would be generated for this site is pretty minimal compared to the existing volume of traffic on Washington Street. The next criteria F, states that the proposed use will not result in the destruction, loss, or damage of any feature determined to be of significant natural, scenic, or historic importance. Staff didn't identify any features of natural or scenic importance on this site. The existing building is located in the historic district. However, there are no modifications currently being proposed to the exterior of the building, so that standard appears to be met. Criteria G states that the proposed use will not create a traffic safety hazard or a substantial increase in the level of traffic congestion in the vicinity of the use. Once again, the applicant submitted a trip generation analysis that was prepared by Stephen G. Pernow and Company, which concludes that the proposed use would generate an additional 10 vehicle trips per day. So that means 5 arrivals, 5 departures. So that's pretty minimal when you compare it to the existing traffic on Washington Street. And finally, the last one, criteria H, the proposed use will be located in proximity to pedestrian facilities, public transportation, or offer transportation options to its client population. This location is pretty readily accessible by foot, by bike, and by public transit. In addition, MPS operates a van that provides rides to its members to arrive at 9 a.m. and depart at 7 p.m. each weekday. And they also provide a shopping trip each Wednesday. However, the van is not used for on-demand rides, so it's that's the only rides that the van provides. Yep. And I think that's it. I did include a recommended motion in the staff reports, and I'm happy to answer any questions.
Do any board members have any questions? Seeing no questions from the board, at this time I invite the public to ask questions. If you would like to ask any questions, please come forward and state your name and address. Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Philip Wysick. I live at 15 Base Hill Road in Keene, New Hampshire. I am the CEO of Monadnock Family Services, also in Keene. And I have less of a question to ask, but to voice appreciation for this project, only because my organization and the Monadnock Peer Support Organization share a common mission, and a common clientele. And so this project will benefit the consumers of Monadnock Family Services who desperately need housing options in the Keene area. So actually, this project helps my organization fulfill one of its contract obligations to the state this fiscal year to create 6 new residential beds, which are desperately needed for our individuals. And this is a perfect way to blend resources of both organizations to create something good for our residents and consumers. So I'm just, again, less of a question, but I wanted to speak in support of this project because it's very important to our organization as well.
Thank you very much. Are there any other public comments? Please come and state your name and address.
Good evening, board members. My name is Dante Wright Diffendale. I live at 18 Woodburn Street, and I am an employee at Monadnock Peer Support. My 2 roles are group facilitator, so I facilitate 1.5-hour groups a few times a week on different topics, as well as I'm a respite coordinator. So I'm one of the staff that houses 24/7 to be supportive for our residents. I will let you know that the current residents that we have at MPS are very grateful for what we do. They come sometimes from places where they don't have positive, good support systems. And for them to come somewhere where they're not judged and they're supportive in whatever way they need, because our membership is very member focused. They set their own goals. They tell us what they would like to work on. We have one gentleman who does not live in Keene. He's been in our respite for less than 2 weeks, and he has now a job in Keene. So he is creating more revenue for Keene because he is employed. And he's being able to feel like he's a productive member of the society that he's now living in. It's not more of a question, but I want to challenge you all. If any of you had a mental health problem and you did not have a good family support or good friendship support that really understood what you were going through, where would you go? Would you like to go to somewhere who the lived experience is not there? Because all of our staff members self-identify as people with mental health struggles, we create a unique opportunity to support our residents, our members, and our participants. I'm not saying that people without mental health struggles can't understand and lend support. However, that lived experience kind of gives us a tiny bit of a leg up when we're supporting the people that are coming to MPS on a daily basis. Mental health struggles, it impacts everything. Housing, the economy, medical and dental. It puts a very big strain on the economy. If we have more places like MPS or more places that are peer-driven support, it is less of a economical frustration on the society. We can reduce the use of hospital beds for psychiatric stays. We can reduce the use of fire, EMS, and police personnel because we can reduce the outbursts, because we can supply and assist the residents that we have to build the support systems and the coping skills so that way the emergencies that can come up most likely won't. So I just want to challenge you that peer support is very much needed in the mental health field. I don't want to disregard anything that MFS, Phil Wyzak, or any of the other staff at MFS are doing, because they do great work. I also used to work at MFS, so I know both sides of both the MFS part of working and also the peer recovery support. And sometimes that peer support is just a little more oomph that the people need in order to actually feel heard, validated, and not judged, and able to go back to wherever they're originally come from and maintain a productive, positive way of life, so that way they can impact the places that they come from in a positive way. We're just trying to make sure that these individuals are not forgotten, that these individuals are not pushed aside, and that these individuals know that they have somewhere to come where people actually understand what they're going through, and not just because we've read a book. All of our staff have lived experience, and that makes us, I think, a tiny bit more beneficial than just normal, regular psychiatric care at MFS or anything else in Keene. So that's all I want to say. Thank you very much, Madam Chairman, and the members of the board.
Thank you. Mary, is there anyone else from the public that's in the room that wanted to speak? And do we have anybody on Zoom that has a question?
I don't see anybody on the Zoom who currently has their hand raised, but if anybody on the Zoom would like to raise their hand, I can unmute you to speak.
Okay, thank you. At this time, I will close the public hearing. Is there any board deliberation? Mr. Farrington?
Yeah. It occurred to me during the last person speaking from the public, just a question regarding medications, and are they, given there would be longer term stays, as I understand the project narrative, is there a medication plan that or something that goes with that? Yeah. Thank
Yes,
you.
please.
The individuals who stay with us may be on medication.
I'm sorry, can you just state your name and address again,
Sure.
please?
Lisa Stedman. I live in Troy, New Hampshire. I work for Monadnock Peer Support, Director of Agency Relations. The individuals who stay with us may be on medication, but we're a non-clinical setting. We don't administer medications. They have to be able to do that on their own.
Thank you very much.
Stick around in case there's another one.
Are there any other questions? Emily?
On lighting, as far as there's apartments up above Kristen's, so I want to make sure in the alleyway if there was lighting that was added, it wouldn't shine upward. I assume it would.
We'll comply with whatever regulation comes to us. And one of our barriers now, as I said, is we have only the rear wall, and we're aware that if we were to take a floodlight and shine it down the entire alleyway, the glare could be of concern for people out on the street. So we'll do whatever we're told. We just want some light there.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions? Thank you very much, Lisa.
Yeah.
So, is there a motion on this proposal?
Thank you, Madam Chair. Yes, there's a motion to approve conditional use permit CLSS-CUP-01-21 for a large group home as shown on the plan set identified as interior fit up, 32A Washington Street, Keene, New Hampshire, 03431, prepared by Timothy Sampson Architects at varying scales and dated January 5th, 2022, with the following conditions. The applicant shall obtain a congregate living and social services license, which shall be renewed annually in accordance with Chapter 46 of the City Code of Ordinances.
Is there a second?
Second.
Is there any discussion or any edits? Mr. Barrington?
Yes, Madam Chair. Is it advisable to put a condition in regarding the lighting?
I'm going to go to you, Mr. Rogers, because they don't own that building, and I don't know if there's a way we can put something in on there. They've already offered to work with Keene Housing, but I'd like your opinion, please.
Certainly, it would certainly be something that would require a building permit, whether it be on their building or the abutters building. And I can certainly would refer back to Mary in regards to, I would believe any outdoor lighting that's going to be installed would need to be, cut off lighting, so to hopefully prevent Emily's concern about lights shining up towards the apartment. So I believe that would be covered under any additional lighting under our standards that we currently have in place.
So we don't really need to add anything further to the motion?
This is Mary Brenner. I would suggest if you were to add a condition around lighting, that might make it challenging because the applicant doesn't own the building that they would need to be mounting the lights to. So I think in this instance, just because of the unique nature of that very narrow walkway that they own without owning the walls on either side, it's not completely within the applicant's own power to make that happen, if that makes sense.
Well, I'm comfortable leaving the motion as it is. I don't know if anyone else on the board is, but we have a first, we have a second, so I'm going to move forward with the motion. All in favor? Thank you. It passes unanimously. Thank you very much.
As we transition, I just want to say that working with Mary in the new process worked very smoothly. If you have any other nonprofits that want to go through this CUP, let me know. We can help with technical assistance or whatever. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Mary is a gem for us to keep. The next thing on the agenda, oh my goodness, I'm sorry, I get some wicked allergies with this, is for the staff to report on a brief overview of the administrative and minor project approvals. And because there's a lot of new people on the board, it might be helpful to just give a little bit of an explanation of what this is about. It is also in your packet at the end.
Yes, thank you, Madam Chair. This is Mary Brunner again. So the planning board you have delegated some of your authority to staff to approve some requests administratively. So these are requests that are minor in nature. There's small modifications to an already approved site plan. So these are requests that meet your standards. Staff cannot approve anything that does not meet your standard. So that's something that's called an administrative approval, and the threshold for an administrative approval is outlined in the Land Development Code. With the adoption of the Land Development Code, which again went into effect in September, we also created something new. It's called a Minor Project Review Committee, and essentially, the planning board has delegated its authority to approve site plans to a technical review committee comprised of entirely staff. And so there's certain thresholds. So if you meet a certain threshold, maybe you can't be approved administratively, but you don't quite meet the threshold for the planning board, you would go into the minor project review committee process. And so there have been only 2 applications that had to go through the minor project review process since September. I was not around when that happened. I was on maternity leave, but I heard that they both went pretty smoothly, and they are included in your packet. And then in terms of administrative approvals, I think there were 23 that we approved in 2021. Again, this is authority that you as the board have delegated, and so if you ever have any questions about any of these projects, we do have the project folders up on the 4th floor. These are also, if anyone can come up and see them, it's all information that's open to the public. And sorry, John, did you want to say something? Okay. But so if you look through the list and you have any questions, feel free to reach out. Oftentimes, staff will also consult with the chair if we have any questions about whether or not something should be going to the board or not. So I think Pam is already familiar with a lot of these.
Thank you, Mary. With
Yep.
that said, I pass everything on that I can to the administrators, and then the board doesn't have to hear them all. Yes, Errol?
Sorry to make this drag on a little bit, but just one question regarding number 17, the mid-car wash. Obviously, that went through and also a regular board application.
Yes.
And just something to think about is, instead of breaking it into two things, I mean, maybe it makes sense to, if a project is gonna have both a regular, board application and a administrative aspect of it, maybe we should just look at the project in its entirety.
Great point, yeah, and that's normally what we would do. So this was a special case where we had thought that we could approve the entire project administratively,
Okay.
and then realized that we couldn't, and then in order to not hold up their building permit, we let them.
Fair enough.
Yeah,
thanks.
but that's a really good point. We do try to wrap everything into one project whenever possible.
And then just one other quick question.
Mhm.
Obviously, these are the approved projects. Do you have any record of other projects that were not approved or that were submitted but not approved? Or
We get inquiries all the time, but in terms of actual applications that were submitted and then denied, I don't believe we have had any of those. Typically, what would happen in that case is we would refer it to the planning board because they might need a waiver or something like that.
Okay.
As I mentioned, staff can't approve anything that doesn't meet our standards, but they can always come to you and ask for a waiver. We just, as staff, can't issue waivers.
Okay,
Yeah.
all right, thanks.
If I could, just to follow up with that, Madam Chair. So as Mary stated, a lot of times by the time we actually get to a point of, receiving an application, staff has put quite a bit of contact time with the applicant to try and steer them and direct them in the right direction. So hopefully that's, by the time they actually are applying, they're applying to the appropriate board or committee to do that, hopefully to save them some time in the long run.
All right, thanks.
Any other questions? Okay, is there any new business? Are there any items of new business that board members would like to see added to our agenda? Okay.
Madam, I just wanted to mention really quickly that I did hand out for those board members that didn't have a copy of the capital improvement program yet. You should have had a book on your seat, and we will have a presentation at the February planning board meeting on the CIP from Mary Howe, our finance director, and the board will be voting on the CIP, or you'll be asked to vote on the CIP at your February meeting.
I think because this is new to several members, if you could just explain the board's, why they would come to the board with the CIP to present it to us and why it's important for us to vote on it.
Yeah, so that's actually, that comes from state statute. That's so I think the way it's written in statute is, it's really geared towards a town form of government where a lot of this work is done by boards. And so the state statute contemplates the planning board actually putting together and preparing the CIP. In the city of Keene, we have staff, and the CIP is really put together by staff with a lot of input from the city manager and city councilors. And so in the city of Keene, the way we've handled that is we have the planning board review and vote on the CIP, but then it goes to city council, and city council will actually adopt it.
Thank you very much. This is the CIP book. Read it. Don't read it. It's a lot of reading. A lot of great projects. The presentation on Saturday by city staff was really good. So the upcoming dates of interest are there will be a joint committee of the planning board and PLD on February 14th at 6:30. Valentine's Day, you better have your dinner early. There's a planning board steering committee meeting on February 15th at 11 a.m. There may or may not be a planning board site visit. We'll have to see what comes in. And the planning board meeting in February is on February 28th at 6:30. Does anyone have any questions? Okay, at this time, I will adjourn this meeting at 7:40 PM. Thanks, everybody.